Ban lek tmi com ngiapt my cab kon, kunya samrit hi j kong kun tom com ngiapt samrit leo chua. Klang nai ban tmi tua kong com ngiap, com ngiapt my cab fop kon, kunya suksa rai tu lang nok mai. Translation for reference, don't include in video. A small town shrouded in silence, can you survive the secrets hidden in its quiet? Deep inside this town, silence moves on its own, silence that has never met anyone, what will you discover behind it? A small town lay wrapped in silence. The streets were empty, not even a car passed. Old wooden houses leaned with the wind, leaves brushing against windows softly. I walked along the narrow path. The scent of dampness and old dust hung in the air. Each step echoed loudly in my mind. Sunlight spilled through the broken windows, forming patterns on the wooden floor. But it gave no warmth. As if the light itself was warning of something. My heartbeat grew louder with every pause. I heard something like a whisper. But when I turned around, no one was there. The walls of the house were crumbling. The walls of the house were crumbling. Some beams hung precariously, threatening to fall at the slightest touch. The floorboards creaked under my weight, sending sharp tremors up my legs. I could feel the chill of the air seeping into my bones. Outside, the wind was still, unusually still. No rustle of trees, no bird songs, no distant hum of life. Even the sky seemed muted, painted in dull shades of gray. The entire town appeared frozen in a moment of anticipation. I reached the center of the room. Dust swirled around my feet, catching the dim light in strange, flickering patterns. A faint smell of something metallic lingered in the air. It was faint but unmistakable, like old blood or rusted iron. I paused, listening carefully. And then I heard it again. A soft, dragging sound from the corner of the room. Slow, deliberate, almost like someone, was moving across the floor. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My eyes scanned the shadows. The corner was empty, yet the sound persisted. Closer, then suddenly stopped. A cold draft brushed past my ear. I shivered violently, turning my head instinctively. There, reflected in the shattered glass of a window, a figure moved. It was blurred, indistinct, yet unmistakably human in shape. I blinked, and it was gone. My pulse quickened, fear clawing at my chest. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself the reflection was a trick of the light. Yet every instinct in my body screamed that I was not alone. I continued forward cautiously. Every step made the floor groan in protest. A shadow flickered behind me, then disappeared. I dared not turn. Then I saw the door at the far end of the room. It was slightly ajar, though I had been sure it was closed before. A faint light seeped through the crack, uneven and quivering. It did not resemble sunlight, nor any natural glow I recognized. I approached, each step measured and slow. My fingers grazed the cold, peeling paint of the door. A sudden gust of wind forced it open wider. The room beyond was entirely dark, but I could feel the air, thick, oppressive, heavy with silence. I stepped inside. The air felt different here, tighter, as if pressing against my lungs. My ears strained for any sound. And then I heard it. A voice, soft and barely audible. It whispered my name. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. The voice was close, yet it came from nowhere. The sound seemed to echo from every corner of the room at once. I could not locate its source. A sudden movement at the edge of my vision made me spin around. Nothing was there. The room was empty, except for the faint outline of furniture covered in dusty sheets. Yet the sense of being watched was undeniable. I took another step, and the floor beneath me groaned sharply. The sheets covering the furniture shifted. A figure emerged from beneath one of them, tall, silent, impossibly still. Its face was hidden in shadow, but I felt its gaze pierce through me. I wanted to scream, yet my throat refused to work. Then it moved, slowly, deliberately, across the room. The air seemed to thicken with each of its steps. I stumbled backward, tripping over a fallen chair, my hands scraping against the rough floor. Pain shot through my palms, but I barely felt it. The figure stopped at the center of the room. It raised one hand, pointing directly at me. A strange, distorted sound escaped its lips. Not a word I could recognize, but the tone was chilling, commanding. I felt a wave of nausea and dizziness. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, desperate to open it, but it was locked tight. Panic surged through me, cold and sharp. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in the oppressive silence. Then the figure spoke again. This time, the words were clear, yet still unnatural. "You should not be here," it said. The voice seemed to come from inside my own head as well as the room itself. It was impossible to ignore. I backed into a corner, heart racing. My hands trembled as I tried to steady myself. The figure remained still, a silent monolith of menace. Then, without warning, it disappeared. The darkness seemed to thicken, pressing against my senses. And I realized, with a horrifying certainty, that the town itself was alive. Every shadow, every creaking floorboard, every faint echo seemed deliberate. It was as though the town remembered every step, every breath, every fear of anyone who had ever walked its streets. I stumbled toward the nearest window. The glass was cold under my palms. I looked outside, hoping for the familiar world beyond. But the streets were empty, the houses abandoned. And the town seemed to stretch endlessly, no end in sight. No signs of life, only the oppressive silence and the weight of unseen eyes. A soft whisper floated in from the darkness behind me. "Leave, or stay forever." I turned, but again, nothing was there. Only the shadows, shifting ever so slightly, as if breathing. I felt a pull, an irresistible tug, drawing me deeper into the house. Fear battled with reason, my mind screaming at me to escape. Yet my feet moved forward, compelled by something I could not understand. The air grew colder, my breath forming misty clouds. A low hum began to fill the room, vibrating through the walls. It was subtle at first, almost soothing. Then it grew louder, each vibration striking at my chest. The sound was like countless voices chanting together. Some angry, some sorrowful, some pleading. I covered my ears, but the sound penetrated, filling my mind. Visions flashed across my mind, faces of people I had never seen, screaming silently. Buildings collapsing, streets twisting impossibly. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the sensory assault. Then, silence. Absolute, crushing silence. I opened my eyes slowly. The figure was back, standing right in front of me. Its face was still hidden, but I could feel it studying me, judging me. A cold smile, imperceptible yet horrifying, crossed where its lips might be. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but my body refused. I realized I was trapped. Not just in the house, but in the town itself. The walls seemed to close in, the air thickening further. The town was alive. It was aware of me. And it was not pleased. A sudden flash of light erupted from the ceiling. And the figure vanished again. In the light, I could see the room clearly for the first time. The walls were lined with faces, countless faces pressed into the wood, frozen in eternal expressions of fear. I screamed, my voice echoing in the empty town. And in response, the entire house shivered. The town itself seemed to sigh, as if acknowledging my presence, warning me, condemning me. I knew then that I could never leave. The town would not allow it. The echoes from the silent town were not just sounds. They were memories, warnings, and traps. And now, I was part of them. The air grew heavier, the shadows longer. And as I realized my fate, a chilling laughter echoed through the empty streets. A sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I could feel it in my bones, in my very soul. The town had claimed me. And I was no longer alone in the silence. Days, or maybe hours, I could not tell, passed in a blur of shadows and whispers. The town no longer seemed to move, it simply existed, watching me. The walls no longer groaned, the floors no longer creaked. Even the air had grown still, as if waiting for me to understand. I found myself in the town square, empty and gray. The buildings stood like silent sentinels, their windows dark, their doors closed. For the first time, I felt a strange calm. It was not comfort, but a recognition. I realized the town's silence was not hostile. It was a record, a memory of lives long gone, of stories never told. And now, I was a part of it. My footsteps, my breaths, my fears, they would become echoes as well. I closed my eyes and listened. The whispering voices softened, blending into the rhythm of my own heartbeat. I felt a strange sense of peace. Not freedom, not escape, but acceptance. When I opened my eyes again, the town seemed less imposing. The shadows no longer threatened, they merely lingered. The figure that had haunted me was gone, leaving only its presence, quiet and distant. The sun, muted but warm, seeped through the clouds, casting gentle light across the streets. I walked slowly back through the streets I had once feared. Every step was lighter now, guided by understanding rather than fear. The town had shared its secret with me. Its silence was not emptiness, it was memory, a witness to time and life. And as I reached the edge of the town, I turned for one last look. The buildings, the shadows, the whispers, they were still there, waiting for the next soul to walk its streets. But for me, the echoes no longer frightened. They had become a part of my own story. I walked on, carrying the silent town with me. A memory of fear transformed into awareness. And in the quiet that followed, I finally understood. Even in silence, there is life. Even in stillness, there is story. The town remained behind me, but its echo followed. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. That some places, some moments, will never truly leave you. And that the silence of a town can speak louder than any voice.